President Stubb calls for immediate end to Ukraine war and UN Security Council reforms. SDP criticizes government's economic policy. Finance Minister Purra admits deficit target abandoned. Red paint stains still visible on Finnish parliament building after environmental protest. Sniffer dog competition tests police and military units in Vaasa. In his first speech at the United Nations General Assembly, President Alexander Stubb emphasized that the war in Ukraine persists because Russia does not want to end it. He criticized Russia for attempting to blame other countries for its own aggression. Stubb called on Russian President Vladimir Putin to end the war immediately and urged adherence to the principles of international law and the UN Charter. Stubb proposed reforming the UN Security Council, suggesting that members violating the Charter should have their voting rights suspended. He also highlighted the need to add representatives from Asia, Africa, and Latin America to permanent member positions and proposed eliminating the veto power of these members. At the end of his speech, Stubb quoted former President Mayor Trt Sari, "Peace is a matter of will. All conflicts can be resolved." He urged the world to work together towards peace. During the parliamentary questioning session in Finland on Thursday, the SDP party criticized the government's economic policy, claiming it has failed. Finance Minister Purra admitted that the goal of reducing the deficit by 1% is no longer valid. Instead, the government is working to stabilize the public debt ratio. Tytti Tuppurainen, leader of the SDP parliamentary group, criticized the government, led by Purra's Finnish party, for its employment policy. In response, Purra affirmed the government's commitment to stabilizing the debt ratio by 2027. Prime Minister Petteri Orpo asserted that the government is still functioning effectively and the economy is gradually growing despite the criticism. Finnish Finance Minister Purra stated that the government has abandoned the 1% GDP deficit target for 2027. Instead, they will focus on stabilizing the public debt ratio. Purra emphasized that due to the worse-than-expected economic situation, the deficit target is no longer feasible. With current measures, the deficit could reach 2.3% of GDP by the end of the government's term. Nevertheless, Purra confirmed that there are no plans to increase taxes, and the government will continue to implement a mildly stimulating fiscal policy to tackle economic recession and stabilize the national financial situation. After being cleaned, red paint stains were still visible on the pillars of the Finnish parliament building. On Thursday morning, reporter Mikko Riitan reported that the red paint was noticeable at the joints of the pillars. Some paint was still visible on the hand when the reporter tried to wipe the surface of the pillar. Environmental activists used a fire extinguisher to spray red paint, a mixture of water-based paint and cornstarch, onto the columns and walls. According to building manager Sari Turunen, although the paint is water-soluble, the stains are difficult to remove completely due to the absorbent granite surface. According to criminal law professor Kari Melander, serious vandalism charges could be applied due to the damage to the historic and protected structure. Whether the stains can be fully removed does not affect the assessment of the severity of the offense. In the city of Vaasa, a contraband detection competition involving sniffer dogs was held at the Rewell Shopping Center. The three-day competition tested the ability of sniffer dogs from police units, customs, border guards, and the military to detect drugs. The final test required the dogs to search for contraband in luggage within 7 minutes. One team completed the challenge in just 3 minutes. The dogs, mostly Labradors, demonstrated impressive sniffing abilities, detecting a gram of drugs in a large warehouse. The competition aimed to improve the skills of the dogs and trainers, not for entertainment purposes. Police are investigating a stabbing incident in the Vallila area of Helsinki as attempted murder and are examining the connection between the case and street gangs. The attack occurred around 7 p.m. on Wednesday at a business premises on Markkolan Kartu. The victim sustained serious injuries and was taken to the hospital for treatment. According to the police, the suspects fled the scene but were later apprehended at various locations in the capital area. Police also confirmed that the victim and suspects knew each other prior to the incident. The Western Uusimaa Police Department is investigating a case of suspected serious treason in Finland involving the disclosure of classified national security information. According to the police, the incident relates to the release of confidential information concerning national security, and the offender could face imprisonment of 4 months to 4 years. Currently, the police have not disclosed many details about the investigation, including the number of suspects or the location of the incident. However, they confirmed that the investigation began earlier this year and is still ongoing. Lawyers Paula Parzular and Jenny Raiskio, who are assisting the victims of the Vastaamo data leak, could earn millions of euros from this support, despite not charging the victims directly. Instead, they send invoices to insurance companies and possibly the state. These two lawyers have around 3,000 to 3,500 clients, and each case could be billed up to 4,000 euros in insurance fees. This could generate millions of euros for them. Some victims feel they may receive less compensation than the lawyers representing them. Nonetheless, most victims are satisfied with the help they have received, believing that without the lawyers' support, they would not have been able to claim compensation. The lawyers acknowledge they will profit from the case but note that it requires significant time and effort. The Gerbiili mobile unit has significantly reduced unnecessary emergency visits for the elderly in the Kanta-Häme region. In half a year, emergency visits decreased by 10% in the Hämeenlinna area compared to the same period last year. In Riihimäki and Purra, where the unit began operations in May, visits decreased by 9% and over 6%, respectively. Gerbiili is a home healthcare support unit that provides consultation, support, and home visits when needed, to prevent unnecessary emergency room visits. Through close coordination between healthcare professionals and patients, Gerbiili has served over 1,580 patients and handled nearly 4,000 calls or visits. A deep and steep construction site in Niemen Rantar, Tampere, has worried local residents. On Federler yn Katu, next to the VTS building, a 4-meter deep pit has appeared since early summer, creating an unauthorized shortcut that is frequently used. The temporary protective fencing has raised safety concerns, especially at night, with the risk of falling to the bottom of the pit. Resident Marika Njok, who lives nearby, expressed concern as children often walk near the pit, especially in the dark. A recent accident in Helsinki led to the death of a man who fell into a similar pit. VTS Kotian stated that the project belongs to Kiinteistö Oy Mulu, but no one has yet taken responsibility for safety. The Avolito Association and the City of Lappeenranta are preparing a set of recommendations on smart device use for children and adolescents during their leisure time. The project aims to provide families with information on the impact of smart device use on the brain health of children at different ages. Based on the latest international studies, the recommendation emphasizes that children under 2 years old should not use smart devices. Families are encouraged to practice a charging ritual each evening, keeping phones out of bedrooms. Additionally, children should only start using smartphones when they begin secondary school, around 12 to 13 years old. Lappeenranta will pilot these recommendations in November, with plans to expand them into national guidelines in the future. Lapland has formed a professional community around the phenomenon of aurora hunting. At this time, aurora hunting is more favorable due to the solar maximum cycle, allowing people to witness the aurora not only in polar regions but also further south, even as far as Spain. In Rovaniemi, a small group of aurora hunters gathered with the company Beyond Arctic to embark on an aurora hunting trip. Leading the group was Ryan Oliveira, a former American journalist who switched to aurora hunting in Lapland. This job is less stressful than his previous profession but still requires patience and high skills. During the journey, Oliveira used weather and magnetic field tracking tools to select the optimal viewing spot. After hours of waiting, the group was finally rewarded with a breathtaking spectacle. The aurora appeared in shimmering green hues, reflecting on the lake. This left a lasting impression on the travelers.